Folks, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show. And as we wrap up 2022, head into a new calendar year, it's always important for this host to be able to connect with artists who are coming at it from an individual point of view, stylistically, trying to develop their own voice in whatever medium they're doing, whether it's on the bandstand or, in my case, behind the microphone, or in any event, it's to me, it's cathartic to connect with people like that. And this year, I had a chance to connect with a couple of cats who really blew my mind. And one of them was this cat, Jason Abraham Roberts, who uh, did magic when he was younger and does create magic on the bandstand. So I've seen him several times this year, and been very healing. And he hit me to his best friend or his closest friend from long back in Appalachia, who's a dynamic, sort of multi-artistic person. He's authored books, a coffee table book on the band Phish, and a myriad of other projects. So it's always important to keep connected to kindred spirits in this time, in a very interesting and weird, energetic time. Brian Harding, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
What's up, Jake? How's it going? Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, man. I wanted to ask you a question. Did you have to go to the bottom of the pit? Is that what put you on your path to sort of peace? Did you ever reach the bottom of the pit in your life?
Yeah, for sure. I'd say, I think there have been people who have reached lower pits than me. I was lucky to have like family and friends, but sure, I'm like a recovering alcoholic. So, I quit drinking when I was like 30 and haven't gone back to that. So I think, the fact that I did reach a bottom pit definitely brought me to where I am now. I did some cool stuff when I was drinking, but I've
No, well, I
done.
mean, let's talk about that because, like, you first started to see live music in what year?
Oh gosh, well, Phish in '96, but live music in general, probably when I was like, I saw Phish for the first time when I was 14 years old. Um, so my dad is actually a jazz musician, so I kind of grew up going to a bunch of jazz and classical stuff like that. So I've been seeing
Damn,
live music.
dude, sick. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been seeing live music since I was like 3. So sitting in like the orchestra pit with him and stuff, and it was really, really cool time.
Well, let me ask you a little bit about the upbringing. I mean, what was jazz? Were you seeing it in clubs? I'm curious about the live context that you were seeing. Uh,
Yeah.
not so much classical music because like Lou Donaldson came from North Carolina, Dizzy came from North Carolina,
Oh yeah, man.
Jimmy Heath did. You got
Coltrane, like Nina Simone.
right, man. And like,
Um,
was your dad going to was there a place where you could check? Not that those cats were, some of them were still kicking around. I'm wondering if you had a chance to see some of the our elders in jazz.
yeah, I never saw any like quote unquote like household name legends, but I'm from Charlotte, North Carolina, so my dad played a lot of clubs around Charlotte. There's some real heavy hitters who didn't really ever get famous, but they're just amazing players. So,
Absolutely, yeah,
and
totally.
my dad's a professor of rock. He teaches history of rock and roll. He taught at UNC Chapel Hill and UNCC. So I just grew up sitting in those classes and just like learning about rock since I was like 5. And as far as live jazz goes, I can't name you any impressive stats, but just going to like traditional jazz shows as a kid, I just kind of grew up and it kind of set in me. And I would always explore my dad's record collection and found Miles Davis that way and all that kind of crazy stuff. So, it was an early start.
What did you, looking back on it, what was the most important things you took away from your dad's history on rock and roll as you brought it into your own artistic life?
I think he was always pretty vocal about how much artists got screwed over in the 50s and 60s, most notably like black artists. But just kind of like keeping your head up above water and not kind of falling for any kind of like bad situations or bad contracts and kind of like sticking with good people and kind of watching out for sharks and stuff like that. I still didn't really always protect myself. But I think he kind of gave me some like wherewithal to kind of keep my head above water and that kind of stuff.
Um, when you refer to the black musicians of the 50s and 60s, you're talking about like the payola scandal?
Exactly, payola. He spends lots of time in his class talking about that, and I remember as a young kid, just like not fully understanding that, but understanding that it was a really shady thing, and it still happens today. I mean, in other forms, but just guys like signing away their life for like like a paycheck, and foregoing like royalties and stuff like that. It was really a horrible thing what happened to those guys back then, and it still happens today to a certain extent.
Can you talk a little bit? I mean, I'm fascinated by the payola scandal.
Yeah.
Jack Cassidy talked to me about it from Jefferson Airplane.
Oh,
Uh,
cool.
but I'm wondering about like um, if you could talk a little bit about the idea of where a black artist, would make a tune, create
Hmm.
a tune, and then someone like George Jones would cover it. They'd whitewash the tune. It was like R&B raunchy stuff, so they whitewashed it, and then
Yeah.
a white artist got famous off of it. Can you talk a
Yeah.
little, just talk like what was prescient and why that even stood out to you, just because maybe of the injustice of it all? I don't know.
Yeah, well, I mean, like George Jones is like kind of is like is kind of a badass. So I give him a pass on that.
Yeah, that might have been the
I like
Pat
George
Boone,
Jones.
Pat Boone, Pat Boone, Pat
Yeah,
Boone.
Pat. So I was actually good. Yeah, so my next person I was going to say was Pat Boone. That's who my dad always talked about. That guy was just like, I mean, complete shit, just like terrible, terrible dreck. And people like exist like him today. I mean, like I like Justin Timberlake, but I see like shades of Pat Boone in his vibe sometimes.
Wow, that is such a classic statement. I mean, I'm so that go so do you remember what your dad like, did he talk about his position at the time? Was he hip? Was he aware enough to know what was going on, or it was all under the table and only came to light, the scandal
Yeah, I
came to
mean,
light
well,
years later?
I mean, like my dad wasn't really in that world. He was more of like a live musician who kind of
Sure, sure,
like a lot of bands would come to town. Like this is like back in the 60s and 70s, but a lot of bands would travel without a band, and they would have like bands kind of sight read the music in each town. So
sure.
he'd play for like James Brown and like Stevie Wonder and like the Four Tops and Temptations and stuff, and just like just learn the music like that day or whatever like that. So he wasn't really in like the recording. He wasn't like a quote unquote artist, like writing things and having to deal with like the minutia of like day-to-day labels. So he never but he was like educated on it because he was friends with a bunch of like dudes, who were in that scene. So
Um, Talking to Brian Harding here on the Jake Feinberg show. I'm just curious as we enter the new year, like musically or from any artistic point of view, where do you want to push yourself out of your comfort zone the most?
well, I mean, it's I started out playing music, with Jason, who you mentioned. So we played music a ton, and then like the past couple of years, I really took a back seat to that and started this account film. And I didn't really plan on making music like ever again. But we started this thing called House Band, so I kind of want to, push that a little further and record some more and like possibly play some shows and take it out of the realm of just like Instagram and make more books and maybe like a documentary or something like that. So just I found during COVID when I started film, I never thought that I could start something like this. I never thought I could make merch. I never thought I could make a book. I never thought I could like do all these things. But I just found that if you just kind of jump in and kind of do it, then you can usually do it sometimes.
Well, I mean, you're making it sound. I mean, that's the art of genius, is making something complex look simplistic. But um, can you just talk about your earliest memory of transcending into the intergalactic with Jason Abraham Roberts playing music,
Yeah,
please?
I can pinpoint it to one moment. We
Oh,
were
great. Go ahead.
we were playing a high school talent show. I think our junior year, and I'd never played on stage before in my life. Jason was pretty, I mean, he was still young, but he'd still played a bunch. And we cover the Black Crowes song Remedy.
Hmm.
And I sang that, and I just like I couldn't believe how good it felt, and like I did like really well. And the crowd responded to it, and it was just a crazy. I mean, it's a crazy high, crazy feeling. Even it was like some dinky high school talent show, but still, it kind of showed me that I did want to do that. So I do pinpoint at that moment quite specifically.
Were you guys able to like? Um, did you play gigs in high school? Like, what kind of, and also like, did you, because your dad was a jazzer, did you learn to hear music before you learned to read it?
Well, I took piano lessons very young, and like I always had a really hard time reading music. And what I started to do was I can't think of the term for some reason, but just like hear them just like play by ear.
Mm-hmm.
And my piano teacher got pretty pissed, like she caught me doing that after about a year or two, but it
Dude,
taught me
the
how.
thing I love, I just want to tell you, Klaus Vorman, the great bass player and artist,
Oh yeah.
he told me that uh his piano teacher had like a dog collar and she'd like yank his neck because he would not read the music, dude. So yeah,
Really?
it was it took her a year to catch on that you were just playing by ear.
Yeah, I mean, I was very young, so it like may have been 6 months, but like in my head, it felt like a year or two. But that did teach me to have like a really good ear, and I still, if I'm not like a crazy like dynamic, virtuoso guitar player, but I do have a much better ear than most people that I can pick up on just chord changes and stuff like that. So that kind of taught me that talent. And piano. I wish I had gone further with piano because I really do writing on it. I really do love writing on it, playing it, but I'm very basic on piano.
I mean, to me, like I just want you to talk a little bit about, you know, the when you got did you guys actually have a band at some point, like you and Jason, or when was the first working band that you had?
Yeah, we had a pretty casual band, and we started a band after that talent show called Pensy Prep, and it was just super like what you would expect of a late '90s high school band, like Weezer meets Radiohead kind of stuff. And then we went to Appalachian State College together, and we started to get a bit more serious about it and started a band called Player Piano, and that was a bit more pavement indie rock kind of stuff.
Wow.
And that we
What
played.
what does pavement mean?
Oh, like the band Pavement.
I did. Got it. Okay, I thought that was a
Yeah,
musical
yeah.
term. Yeah.
Oh no, yeah, no, just like very like not like indie rock, like like I Got It by Voices, Pavement kind of stuff. And then we moved to New York City and linked up again, and that's when it kind of got really serious. And we started this band called Hymns, like a church hymn, HYMNS. And that was kind of a bit more like country fried Wilco Stones kind of stuff. And
Sure.
we made kind of a name for ourselves locally in New York, and we toured a bunch. And then we kind of went our own ways, and then reconnected back again later. It's kind of we've just been playing music for like I don't know like 25 years together.
You just talk a little bit about that the I guess the idea of coming back to music continuously. I mean, you can never really get it out of your system. And, for
Yeah.
me, so much of the experience now is it's one thing to have a live music experience, and it's another thing to have a live music experience with people that you are connected to, that you're friends
Mhm.
with, that you want to support. You love their point of view, where they're coming from. It's like very healing.
Mhm.
And just from your point of view, like, did you like in New York, for instance? I mean, when you were working a lot, how much did the music and how did the music heal your psyche, if at all? And
Um,
what I mean by that is like, obviously we talked about at the outset, you drank, so like,
yeah.
clear, I mean, it's a musician's life. I mean, I'm writing my fifth book and it's like, you
Oh
know,
wow.
yeah, and it's like these cats all you have to be Mike Finnegan, the great keyboardist from Bonnie
Mhm.
Raitt and Phantom Blues Band. He was like, you got to be crazy to be in this life
Yeah.
as a musician.
Yeah.
So I know just from my own experience, a feeling that one of the one of the perks of being a musician, if you're playing music you love with people you love, is that you're gonna get healed, on like a metaphysical level.
Yeah. I know. I totally feel it. I mean, we didn't jam or anything like that in that iteration, but we did play tons of live shows, and we got to be a really tight live band. And when you had those moments when it's just really connecting, I know it just sounds like a cliche thing to say, but when it's really connecting, it really hits. And that happened a few times with us. And playing a crowded New York bar that's like sold out to see your band is a really crazy feeling. And we had that a few times, and we got really good, and broke up eventually, but still everyone's friends. But I always really enjoyed recording like 1,000 times more. So I think those moments kind of occurred to me more like in the studio.
Can you talk about a specific time in the studio? I'm fascinated with you getting off up more on the recording side.
I think probably the first time I really had a bunch of fun with it was our first time in Los Angeles back in like 2008. We recorded with Dan Horn from Circles Around the Sun. I think you've interviewed him.
I mean, a deer like a shaman character,
Oh yeah, of
one of
course.
my heroes, dude.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. Same. And
totally,
like
man.
just going to his like home studio, which is really crazy for me because I'd never been to LA and I'd never seen like such cool gear. and like we recorded to tape, and that was just a moment where it was the first time it felt really, really real and really cool, and like anything was possible. And you're just in like this town like Los Angeles, you're recording with this like guy like Dan Horn, and, like Jason, and it just felt like
I
such
did honestly no. That is that's
like a movie, you
Christmas.
know?
That's Christmas every day right there.
Yeah, yeah. It was so that was probably the first really, really fun time I've had in the studio, but I've had a lot more times past that.
Well, I mean, once you got your sea legs a little bit, talk about a time of I guess being in the proverbial zone. I mean, in the studio to me today, especially, everything is so just with technology, you can you know
Mhm.
you don't hit at the same time, and I just feel like that's a sin. Yet, I'm not doing production and stuff. I feel like everyone should be hitting at the same time. I mean, I just interviewed this guy Dougie Rodriguez today, who was really close with Dougie Roush and wound up on
Mhm.
some Santana records. And like, you know, he overdubbed his solos. McLaughlin overdubbed his solos.
Right.
So the rhythm. I don't want to be Pollyannish, but
Right.
like, were you primarily part of the rhythm section? Would you lay down, or were you a lead guitar player? How would you like? And also, how would you like? Would you lay the rhythm tracks down first and then overdub, or did everybody hit at the same time?
Yes, it went back and forth. We tried a bunch of different variations, but usually it was like usually we did it live, and
Yeah.
we only overdub vocals, and some like percussive stuff and like keyboards. But usually with hymns, we like to play live all the time. We like that whole like Exile Main Street kind of like thing, and like we like to like be together and play. So, and I think that's cool if you're a good enough tight band, I think that you should do that live. But I think you can also make super cool stuff, just like piecemeal.
All right, Brian Harding, I want you to tell me um, what the vibe was like the first time you saw Fish in the early '90s.
Oh man, I mean, just
Because I think that I don't want to get into my own personal feelings. I saw him a couple times in the later '90s. Um, I feel like the only time I would have wanted to see them, I haven't seen him in a long time, would have been right at the outset. And I guess one question I had, you can riff on it any way you want. And by the way, you can go off in any direction you want. You don't have to answer these questions, but um, was it was one of the things that was so amazing about those early scenes and vibes was that of your immediate sort of the access, the proximity you had to the band in order to get content.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know if Jason talked to you about his relationship with Fish or not, but his
No,
his,
not at
his
all. Yeah.
so Jason's cousin is John Fishman.
Oh, I know that. Beyond that, no, I know nothing.
Oh,
No.
okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So it started with, I mean, we were just at that time, and I'd say 1995, we were just like fans of like Nirvana and like Guns N' Roses, and we didn't really know much about much outside of that. And I remember one day Jason brought like the tape of Rift to class, and we were just like, "What is this tape of like your cousin?" And, like the art was all weird and trippy, and like I was instantly just like really into it. And we fell in love instantly with Fish. So my first show was October 26, 1996 in Charlotte,
Wow.
and it was a really crazy way to start because Trey like dedicated a song to Jason like on stage.
I'm sorry for a minute. We got to slow down here, dude. You blew my mind away, dude. Hold on. Was it the Charlotte Coliseum?
Uh-huh, yeah, yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
so that's a kind of a cool older venue. Not, I mean, not one of the newfangled things in '96.
Yeah, it's
And
like where the Hornets play.
sure, sure, no. And so you guys you were on stage. Like, why was the song dedicated to Jason? And I assume you guys had the press pass or guest pass or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. So Jason had just played a Jimi Hendrix competition a couple weeks prior, and this was this thing. It was like kind of corny, but it was cool that he did it. But it was
No,
put on
dude,
by
that's ridiculous, dude.
yeah, it was put on by
Yeah.
Al Hendrix, which is Jimmy's dad. But it was like a nationwide competition to see who could like play like the best Jimi Hendrix song. And Jason like pretty much like crushed Voodoo Child. And
Oh,
he got up to like second place and like competed in Seattle. And he
holy
got second
mama.
place overall. But still it's pretty crazy. And I guess John caught wind of that and he told Trey backstage, and like Trey was like sweet enough to dedicate like run like an antelope to him, and it was just really mind blowing. And I was just like, I couldn't believe that had happened at
Oh
this.
my dude, that is maybe the greatest story of the year, dude. I mean,
Yeah, it's crazy. It's
woo.
out there. The tape's out there. So yeah, we
Um,
got backstage. We got to meet like the guys, and like I was just 14-year-old. Like we made like a sign for Trey. It was like so stupid. We gave it to
that's
him. But
it's you're a fanatic, dude. I love it. Dude. That's
yeah, I
that
mean
that
we're also 14, and we had no couth.
right.
Um,
Sure,
but
sure.
it was really dope, and from then on I was hooked, and just like I'd never felt the vibe of like a hippie show before. I never felt the vibe of like people in patchwork and like people smoking weed and like patchouli, and like it just like the whole vibe was like very cool. And we were just hooked. We just kept going to shows. Like we went to a Big Cypress. We went to a bunch of cool
Right.
stuff.
There was like a lot of those big camp out kind of ones
Yeah,
where
yeah,
like
yeah. So Cypress was like the Millennium show in Florida. Um,
exactly. They played till sun up.
yeah, and on film on the Instagram I do right now, I've been doing like a Big Cypress month, just like archiving all these like kind of curatorial like moments from that festival. So
Tell me a little bit like about the I mean, tell me about the idea of the book and like how where did the germ for that come from?
well, it pretty much like exactly when the pandemic was announced a pandemic. It was like April 20th, not April 20th, but April of 2020. I was just like doing that. I was just like bartending, and I didn't, we got shut down like faster than anybody, and I was just kind of like, what do I do? It was like before unemployment, before anything. I was just very kind of lost. So I had the idea to start this Instagram of film photos, only film photos taken by fans of Phish. And I started that
Wow.
Instagram just kind of like on a lark, and I put out the feelers on like websites and message boards, and it got big pretty quickly, and I was pretty surprised, and I just started going full force into it. I started making shirts and stuff, and then I was approached by this company called Section 119 pretty early on. They're a really cool like clothing company who make kind of like upscale jam band clothes, and they offered to fund like a book version of the Instagram account. So that was kind of like my idea in the first place. So I was super stoked, and I spent like a year of like the lockdown just making this book, and we put it out. It was a huge delay, but it was because it was our first time doing it. We were kind of idiots about it, but we got it out, and I think people like it, and hopefully working on a second one.
What is you just have to when you talk about film from audience members, you're talking about like
Disposable photos, like cameras.
right. So then you take that in, you just explain the process and ultimately like, you know, what people can sort of expect like the essence of what is the essence that you want to get across? How do you know that people are enjoying this book?
Well, I mean, I get DMs like all the time on Instagram about the book and just the Instagram in general. It's a pretty cool feeling. But as far as the process of the book goes, I literally had people like mail me in physical photos that they took, and I scanned them myself at a scanner and sent them back to the people. So it was a big like trust thing, and like felt very like privileged to be getting these like special photos that these people like have been saving their whole lives. And luckily they all got mailed back successfully, and everyone got their photos back. And the photos just kind of the book is just kind of like a visceral experience. If you're expecting pictures of Phish, it's not going to be there because I can't legally do that. But it's like a kind of like a ephemera and like crowd shots and just kind of like vibes of that time. So it's called 1.0, which is the period of like their beginning to like 2000.
Wow.
So it's like a huge 250-page book of just like tons of photos, and we have a few left. We sold quite a bit, but there's still a few left. I think we might do a reprint, and I'm hoping to possibly do a book on Big Cypress if that works out.
What was can you talk about the first transcendent psychedelic experience you had at a fish show? I assume you didn't trip out at 14.
No, dude, I didn't even like do anything like in 1.0 really. Like I was even a Big Cypress, which is the hugest thing. I was completely sober, so I didn't really have a psychedelic experience at a fish show until like Gorge, like last year when I did like a little bit of mushrooms. And that's pretty much it. It's a strange thing to hear that I haven't really tripped out that hard at
No,
a fish
actually,
show.
I think that's really remarkably cool, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't really been a concert tripper guy. I like to do that like either alone or with a friend and just like kind of hike
Yeah,
in the woods.
dude, totally in nature, deep
Yeah,
dive.
I think
Yeah.
if I'm at a show, I'll just smoke some weed or something. It's not really like a thing that I like to get really like fucked
Honestly,
up
man,
with.
I could not. I do not want to. I want to enjoy the show. I don't
Yeah,
want to fucking lose my shit. You know.
yeah. So yeah, even at the gorge, it was kind of pushing it a bit much. I was kind of like not having a great time.
Right.
So
Yeah, you know, it's. I completely am on board. I mean, Fish 1.0 for cats like millennials or even people like me who are really not hip to the band. What was what are they doing today that still resonates with you? Uh, how has the band changed? What was 1.0 in terms of where all the guys' mindsets were as well? It seems like I remember being at BU and I guess it was Breathe came out and we would just go listen to that album. It was very hip. Cats were going to the Providence Civic Center all the time. I mean, they were
yeah,
already well established. I just remember people eating a lot of acid
yeah,
at these shows, and I went to see them at Nassau and but at Coliseum, and I think I saw them, and I got on the boat for a second, but
yeah.
I'd love you as best you can to articulate 1.0 and how if where the essence is today from that time.
Well, I think those guys are just like super hungry during 1.0. I mean, like, they started to become a household name, I would say around like 94, 95 when like Jerry died. They really became like the next thing. And like I think a lot of people kind of trashed them for that because they just thought that they were kind of like climbing onto that thing. But I really think that's like totally false. Like they're amazing. And I think drugs are a lot of influence on Phish in those days. Like Trey is sober now, and I think he was in that kind of drug sweet spot in the 90s before you get kind of like in that spiral, you know.
Absolutely.
So I think he was like hitting that peak until, it got bad in 2.0, which was kind of like a gnarly time for him. But I think it was just a crazy thing. I think playing Europe really changed them a lot. I think like those festivals changed them a lot. I just think that they were really like telepathically like connected in a weird way. I mean, and I think they still are, but there's just something about the 90s, and it sounds like really like old man of me, but I think like the lack of cell phones, I think was just a huge thing too. Just like looking at those photos and the videos with people not filming anything for social media, which is it's such a trippy thing to look at now. It's so mythical to me.
Well, basically, that's sort of what I'm trying to get at is the idea of you can still have, you're spot on, but the idea is you need to be videotaping at the most cathartic peaks of the music. So it's
Yeah,
like it's actually entertaining. It's like highlights. It's a
yeah.
sports. It's not, and the propensity of that now. Um, but it's still. It was when you say they took heat for you're saying that the dead crowd there was a void, and so somehow those fans, based on sort of the vibe of the show, not that the music was anything similar, uh, they got that audience.
Yeah, I mean, I just think there's like a lot of like lazy journalism of people who are just saying like, "Oh, Fish is like the next dead because Jerry died," and like they're just like ignorant stuff, like
Sure,
without
sure.
even listening to Fish. They're just like, "Oh, this is a hippie band taking place of this other hippie band," so like that makes sense. And it's the same year, and blah blah blah, and it's like that comes kind of like. But I think they kind of broke out of that, and I don't think anybody really talks about that anymore. But
Uh,
as far as now, I don't really go to that many shows. I never toured with Fish. I never really had like the money or time. I was always like working. So I'll catch Fish like once or twice a year now. But it's different. They're older guys and it's different music. And like I don't expect like Trey to like be like on cocaine wearing like gold pants when he's like 60 years old. Like it's fine. It's fine. It's like it's chiller. It's different. I still have a great time every time I go to a Fish show. So they're still great. They're still making new music and they're still playing different set lists every night, and it's awesome.
how how do you what is your advice to younger cats about using new media as a producer of content, specifically quality content, in order to drive consciousness? I mean, you're very out there. You've had a lot of success. Part of it's monetization, obviously, but part of it's also like cutting through the morass of everything else out there. And I
Mhm.
just wonder what tips you would have for younger cats about disseminating original content in order to inspire rather than receiving content and drowning.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's a good question. I don't know, man. I think just like, the old phrase, like write what you know. Like, at the end
Hmm.
of the day, I've had the most success with like the jam band stuff because it's just like what I grew up with and it's what I know really well. And if you're into like, krautrock, then you should make like a krautrock page and like talk about krautrock. And like, if you love it and like your soul loves it, like that will come through. And I think people like can feel that and they respond to that. And if they don't, then it is what it is. But at least you've tried and at least you've been like genuine. I just want like people who are like genuine and authentic. That's all I really care about. It doesn't, if it's a band that I don't love, then whatever, but at least you're being true to yourself. And like there's not a bunch of those people left anymore.
You're absolutely right, man. And you're absolutely right. You think that in Fish 1.0, there were more authentic people? Is it a shrinking crowd, or has it always been not that many?
I think Phish, like unlike the like Dead and Co or something like that, like they haven't gotten like I don't think that many quote unquote new fans. I think a lot of people are still just seeing them who are like in their 40s and 50s now. I still see young kids at shows, but it's cool to see like parents who are getting their kids into it. And I'm sure they're like, I get DMs all the time from like kids in high school who are like, oh, I just got into Phish and what was it like seeing them in the 90s? And like, so it's really encouraging to know that Phish is lasting through like this next generation. Um, and I think it'll keep lasting.
Um, my show is based on the four L's: is leadership, love, life, and lineage. And I just wanted to
Cool.
ask you about um, who was the best leader you ever came into your life, and what do you think the best qualities of leadership are on the bandstand or in the studio?
Ooh, well, I don't know. I don't know if I can think of a leader specifically. I need some time on that, but I think I like the David Bowie model where he wasn't like a dictator so much as he just like hired really cool people who he loved and just let them do whatever they want. And I think that's what kind of comes through. I think you just need to be careful in your and I think you need to be careful in your curation. And I think as long as you curate properly, I think you'll have a good experience. And sometimes you won't necessarily need a leader.
Um, did you have anybody you looked up to, um, or ultimately, like, what are some of the qualities of curation? Like you're talking basically, let your work speak for itself. But can you talk specifically about curating something in your life that came to fruition, and the sort of intricacies of that curation that fostered leadership and got it over the finish line?
Well, I think this new thing I'm doing called House Band is kind of like an example of that. I mean, that kind of like was bred from a kind of organic place. And Jason and I got together the best people in our opinion to play on that album. And I gave them like no direction. I just was like, look, I want to make like a groove centric, kind of like repetitive record. Let's just play. And like we spent a day recording and we made a full album. We didn't plan on doing that at all. And I wouldn't really say that there was a quote unquote leader in that situation. I think everyone's just kind of on the same page and the same kind of like wavelength. And I think that that's kind of what made it work.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
No, so dude, thank you for reminding me about House Band, dude.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Tell me about. I mean, these are some of my favorite people.
Hell
Tell
yeah.
me about Patrick Kelly, man. How does that guy fit into the
Yeah,
picture?
I'd never heard his name until like 3 months ago from Jason, and he completely like floored me. He's just a fucking
Talk to me
amazing.
about his style, man. You said you're a jam band guy, but I feel like your ear is more sophisticated than that. I wouldn't pigeonhole. I hate pigeonholing
Oh
stuff.
yeah, me too, me too. No, no, I mean, I'm not even like a really jam band guy. I just really like, I just really like Fish in the Dead.
Yeah,
But
no, but tell me about Kelly's. I haven't gotten to that cat yet, but like I'm not hip to him either. But he's a ferocious player.
he's sick, man. I pretty much, we really love like early Beastie Boys when they were like
Yeah.
instrumentalists, like when they played in a
Hmm.
band.
Sure.
We really like like a Medeski Martin Wood. So we had him bring like an upright bass. We had him bring an electric fretless bass because I love that kind of Paul Simon Graceland stuff.
Oh my
And then
God,
he
dude,
played his
this is out of control, man.
and then he just brought his like normal bass. And dude, he just like plug and play, man. I mean, he just started flying. It was crazy. And he's a super, super sweet man. Just a really cool guy. Everyone in the band is really nice and sweet and really easy to work with. And we just had a blast. To give you a bit of an origin, if you're curious,
Sure.
this was kind of brought together by Section 119. Like Greg, the head of the company, approached me about starting this thing called House Band. Like the name was his idea, and the idea was just to record a few seconds of like some sync music, which for people who don't know what that means, it means like music for commercials and stuff like that. And we had just gone in with the plan of recording a few 30-second snippets of some cool jams, and we ended up making an entire album in like 10 hours. So we didn't really plan to release this as an EP or an album, but it came together, and we're really fortunate to have all these great people involved.
I just want to go back for a second. Uh,
Yeah.
so how did it wind up? All these. First of all, I want to round out the band. We know Jason. Josh is a great cat, amazing
Yep.
drummer. Pat, and then who rounds out the group?
So it's me and then Jason and then this guy named Andres. I'm might
Oh
mess up
yeah,
his name.
yeah, no, Renteria,
Uh,
the percussionist. Yeah.
yeah. Andres Renteria or Renterias, and yeah, incredible, nice guy. Really super pro. I never played with like a pro percussion player, and it's just what it adds is just like is it just mind blowing.
Dude, the man is. I've seen him live. It's just
Oh, he's a
there's
machine.
the scar coming out. But
It's
um,
crazy.
so you were just. Did you have like a certain amount of studio time booked, or it just sort of turned into these like 10 hours, like
Well,
spontaneously?
Jason has a really sick attic studio in his house in Frogtown in LA.
Uh,
So we didn't have to worry about any hours or any kind of like stuff like that. We just went up and played. And so Jason like produced it and like engineered it, and we mixed it together, Jason and I.
can you talk a little bit about um, just sort of the qualities that you try to bring to a session? I mean, are you somebody who maybe even an example of how you serve the song? Some people like Jason, I mean, he's so classic because he can uh, say what he needs to say in a very short period of time. He can totally
Yeah,
stretch out if he wants to. He's
yeah,
like supportive of everybody else.
totally.
Josh is that way, and like that's like, and horns like that. Andres is like that. So
Yeah,
you must be like that.
yeah. I mean, yeah, I hope
What do
so,
you
and I
bring to
think.
the table, man? That's what I'm trying to say.
Well,
Yeah.
I bring to the table where it's kind of like I think I kind of like set the tone for what it would kind of maybe sound like, but I also literally do play music in the band. I play like rhythm guitar and some keyboards. So
I love it.
my plan for that whole session was to kind of like hang back and let these guys who are like, I mean, I consider myself a cool player and I'm good, but these guys are like, insane.
Wait, what's a cool player? Well, I want to know what that means.
Well, I think that I'm if I'm good at anything, it's like being I'm like a cool like rhythm guitar player. Like
Sure.
I can add some cool stuff that some people maybe can't do, and like I have some like funny, cool, weird ideas. But that's more like I'm more like texturizing the music, and they're just like completely like making it just and like destroying it. So I kind of just wanted to kind of be in the background, but also add some textures and stuff like that. And we didn't even really like look at each other or like make any kind of like I don't know. It was a very strange day. We just kind of all were on the same page and just kind of like nailed it.
Please tell me that at some point though, because he's always looking around, that Jason looked at you and said, "Yo, take as many bars as you want, brother Harding."
Yeah, for sure. No, it's
No, because you know what I'm saying? Like that music, which kind of comes across as like a M1 Dishi sort of bitches brew kind of vibe, at least the little
mhm.
clips that I've heard, more modern, but that all that music is textured music.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously it takes gifted geniuses to just you know be able to just sort of turn on a dime and make it interesting. So the fact that you can just continue to sort of paint like that is
Yeah, yeah,
those
and it felt
colors,
like
man.
painting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really felt like painting, and like listening to back to it now, I'm just like I don't even like remember like doing certain things. It's just like we're also like very stoned, but we're but also looking back on it, it's hard to think about doing all that stuff. So
um can you talk just about your concept of love, how you give love and bring love to the world?
um, I think just kind of learning to accept and maybe not understand everything. I think that's kind of like the key to the world right now is that maybe you don't need to understand everything, but you should accept things. And I just try to kind of do that in my everyday life and, you know, hold the door for a person if you see somebody. I think just those little like weird like butterfly effects kind of affect the whole world. And I just try to do like little things. And I think if everybody did like little things, I think it would be like a cooler place.
um yeah, I mean, we have no control of are you do you feel like what kind of affected you know to me, like I would look at it and say, I mean, you just, you know, kind of hunkered down, came up with a great idea, and but yet COVID had an impact on everybody, especially as related to like isolation.
Yeah.
Obviously, a breakdown. There's a huge dysfunction at the political level.
Mhm.
So it was a humbling experience, and then obviously just the idea of just sort of acknowledging that we have no control of it. And that's always been something that's been hard for me as well. I feel like aside from the birthing of of your business during the COVID, was that did was that a humbling experience for you as well?
Yeah, I mean, it still is every day for me. I mean, I still, I'm kind of weird about getting praise and like stuff like that. So even if I get like a DM saying like, "Oh, I love your Instagram," or like it's my favorite Instagram, or I like this record a lot, it's like it feels great, and I'm happy that they like it. But it's still, I still feel like, oh, might be like an imposter or something, or like maybe it's not that good, or like, what all this kind of stuff goes through
Totally,
your
man.
head.
No, everyone's in. We're all insecure, man. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
you don't trust yourself. You know.
So
Uh,
I just try to keep doing stuff. I just try to keep doing different projects all the time and like not really looking back, and just kind of entertaining people and making sure the content's good, and now making music and hopefully maybe playing some shows and stuff like that. So who knows?
how do you feel about being on stage? For a lot of people, it's a petrifying experience for a long time. It's almost they say it's like being naked to the world.
Yeah.
And I just wonder, like you've had a lot of experience, a lot of good times in the studio, but playing live, I don't know. Some of those cats have done it so much that it's just like kind of second nature. And I just
Oh
wonder,
yeah.
like,
I mean, I'd say it's second nature to all of us in the band. I mean, we've all toured so much. I mean, I don't think as far as like nervous goes, I don't get nervous anymore, but there are times when you don't want to do it. But for me, like this project is like my favorite thing I've ever done. So, and I also get like all my other projects, I've been like in the lead, and it feels really good to just like sit at a keyboard and like play some rhythm guitar. So this is like more of a fun thing for me. So I would actually like to play shows with this project.
can you talk about the reality of that? Because I would really lose my mind. Do you think? And also, where are you based out of?
I'm in Durham, North Carolina.
I think you need to move out to the LA, dude.
I used to live in LA.
Oh, you did? Okay, so you already
Yeah,
lived out there. Yeah. No, so
yeah, well, yeah. I was
you're
in New
cool.
York City for a long time, and then I did LA for a while. And I like LA. I like going back there to visit a lot, and it's amazing. Are you out there?
Tucson.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, no, we get shafted. I mean, in the sense that like we just uh I mean, I love it. I found my voice here, and all the most magical stuff in my life has happened here, but um
Tucson's cool.
it is cool, but it's such a the biggest smallest town in the world, so there's not really the collaborative music scene. This it's kind of
Mhm.
interesting to me, like I think you're the perfect person to ask this, because like you put together this group, this house band, and um are there like that to me is almost like they talked about the jazz workshop. That was literally like cutting room floor, working stuff out, people having drinks, but it was like people teaching each other and stuff. And to me, I know you're not teaching each other. You were in there for 10 hours in Jason's studio.
Yeah, yeah.
How prevalent do you think that these little mini projects of this is new, original, creative music.
Mhm.
How much of uh that is quality do you think is going on? I know there's a lot of it going on, but most of it is highly mediocre.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I would say yeah. I'd say most music is mediocre right now.
Yeah, no, I
But
mean, like YouTube, right? Like, I'm like, people have to search for my interview with Ted Nugent, but when they do on YouTube,
right.
it's gonna be profound because I humanized him, and we went for by the end of the interview. So I'm saying, like, there's certain stuff that rises up, and I just wonder, in your mind, are you guys just a unicorn, or is maybe there's a handful? I want to keep the
Yeah.
pulse going, man. That's all I care
No,
about.
I think for sure. I mean, I still, even though I just said that most music is like mediocre, which I do, which
Yeah,
is true, and I
yeah.
won't take that back. But
Hmm.
like, I hear like, for instance, I saw like Circles Around the Sun live a few months ago in Raleigh, and there's a band that opened for them called The Color Green, and they
Right.
like blew me away. I was like, oh, these guys are fucking awesome, and like I didn't even hear about them and like know who they were. So I'm sure that there's a ton of cool stuff happening that I have no idea about.
That's
There's
a very
people
good point. Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Eggy, who I love, and like uh I can't think of stuff right now, but there's a lot of cool stuff. But I view us as like one of those like kind of like 70s things where it's like it was like session guys got together to play like a special album, you know, and like they kind of this is like the one time that they can have fun. That's how kind of you have
Totally,
to.
dude.
Yeah.
Totally. So you do say, and so you do say think that that is, and maybe in the around the country. I just want to believe that there are people that are seekers. It's not just about
Oh
like,
yeah.
you
I
know,
think for sure.
you know.
Yeah,
I was,
for sure.
you know, I mean, Brian, like, at the end of the day, what is your sort of, I don't want to say goal. How often are you able to be in the moment, or is that sort of yogic experience only prevalent when you're creating art?
Yeah, I try to do it more and more because it's harder when you're kind of like online more and you're kind of like in this like matrix like hellscape zone of the digital stuff. So,
Yes.
but it's like I try to, try to like jog or like hike and stuff like that. And like that's when I feel like I can kind of be in that moment. Um, or at a show occasionally. I made a rule for myself that I quit filming at shows. Um, so that's helped me enjoy shows a lot more.
Can you talk about uh, when you started? Uh, I mean, were you bringing in like a VHS recorder in the early
Oh no, no. I
2000s?
just mean like I just mean typical iPhone social media crap, just like filming a
Sure,
show, posting it.
sure.
And
So,
like, and I remember like Phish played a show, Phish played their back from COVID show in Rogers, Arkansas. And I like live streamed the first like few songs. And somebody on like Fantasy Tour like called me out for that and like made fun of me for it. And I got super pissed. But looking back on it, I was like, that's right. It is kind of lame to like do all this. And like now when I go to a show, like I do have like an actual rule where I will not film a show anymore.
right.
Because like plenty of people are filming it already, and it's like what's gonna make your phone video so special that like you want to keep that on your phone? Like when you're ever gonna like look back at a show that you recorded? Like I don't ever do that.
Totally. I just would say that it's more about like if that's what your niche is, if that's what your, if maybe you're not a. Uh, to me, I mean, in some way, you are doing some kind of journalism. I mean, I feel
Yeah,
like
yeah,
you're in some way you're a journalist. So to me, that's absolutely what uh, my MO is just getting quality content. I'm certainly not there, just live streaming it for the sake of other people seeing it. I'm not going to.
sure.
Also, that's the thing that I really got to tell you. One reason I'm psyched that house bands get gigs is because I know you're not going to be playing places where they're going to have all these large screen televisions right
No,
near
no,
this.
no,
I don't need that shit, man. I
no,
can't go to a
no.
show like that. I will not go to
It
freaking
sucks,
shows like
man.
that. It's
It sucks.
terrible, man.
Yeah, it's a
You know what
bummer.
I'm saying?
It's like you're watching TV.
Oh my god. So that in itself, it's sort of like downsizing from like going to a Phish. What's going to get Brian Harding out of the house and on the dance floor these days?
A fish show.
So when you're willing. So going to the this is very important. Going to the large stadium shows for a band that you love. Put the phone away. Just have a ball. Just close the
Yeah.
eyes and have a ball.
Yes, I will go to a large crowded show for Phish or like some like legacy act, but for the most part, I'll only go to like small clubs and see shows.
That's what I want to know. What's going to
Yeah.
get you out? Tell me
Yeah.
what local bands in Durham have your ear?
Well, let's see. I mean, there's a really cool band called Sylvanesto who's from here. Like they're kind of famous. Um, and then we have a really cool band called Black House, which is actually this really cool like all black kind of R&B indie group, and they're super
Whoa,
sick.
whoa.
And then there's I produce like hip hop out here as well too. So there's like some really good rappers out here as well. And also there's this venue called The Fruit, which is like hosts kind of like raves, like techno DJ stuff. And like I'm super into that. I think there's a lot of similarities between that house scene and like the jam band scene.
Explain that.
Well, I think it's just like you're dancing and it's like non-judgmental and there are drugs involved and there's like repetitive music and
Yeah.
like it's just this like kind of like a communal kind of like in niche community. And I just love like groove based music of any kind. So if I can hear like some super loud like techno DJ from like Berlin, that's like a really special thing for me. I like that a lot. So I'll go out to that.
Um, Tell me how you've dealt with. I know it's going to sound weird because that's all our generation has known, but just knowing the pedigree of the musicians on this album and stuff, what is your how do you relate to uh drum machines and synthesizers and stuff? To me, like, yes, they're tools and some of them sound just like the instruments, but when I think of I don't know. I mean, I get a little bummed out when I think about DJs. I mean, or house music, just because you can say jam band or whatever kind of. But the point is that you go on a journey with, and the human pulse is there. How have you learned to sort of use that balance? Because I know that stuff is prevalent in some of the music you're in.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think they can be really cool. I mean, like, like Radiohead uses like drum machines and stuff. I mean, I think it's like it depends on what drum machine you're using. I mean, I think to me, it's like to me, like the lame thing that people do now is like use like plugins on like Pro Tools and like these kind of like fake. It's almost like an Instagram like filter or something you're using on your music that's like
Totally.
pre-made by somebody. So I think like that's lame. I don't think it's lame if you're using like a drum machine or like a DJ. I mean, I think there's a huge chasm of difference between like EDM and like house music. I think EDM is like quite bad most of the time, but house music goes back to like the late 80s. It's really like high art, I think, to me.
Absolutely.
And
What's the pinnacle of house music for you? I mean, is modern day house music better than the late '80s?
I mean, I'm not like super educated on it. I just like what I like, but I'd say like Detroit in like the 90s was a real like almost like Paris in the 20s or something. I mean, there's like really
Whoa, you're
special
blowing
stuff
me with
going
it.
on.
I love this, dude.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
is
So
sick.
yeah, it's super like hard and like just like nothing like you've ever heard before. But I hear stuff, there's like a YouTube called like Boiler Room, and they like curate like the best DJs from around the world and will like record like live sets, and like that's really cool for me to just kind of zone out and watch those people play. So it's very like artful, and I don't know how to do that, so it's cool for me to see because I can't like see the moves. Like when I see a rock band, I see like the moves, but when like a DJ goes, like I don't know what they're doing, so it's like special to me.
I dig, man.
Yeah.
Um, you know, uh, Before I let you go, I mean, can you describe the uproar when you and Jason Abraham Roberts go back to Appalachian State? The kind of reception you get?
Oh, I mean like none at all.
No, I'm kidding. Man, but you guys are where? What town did you grow up in?
We grew well. I'd say like a catch-all is like Concord, North Carolina, but Harrisburg, Midland, super rural. Like so, if you want to go further, I'd say Charlotte, basically, but a small town outside of Charlotte.
I guess my final question is, looking back on it, how do you use your imagination in nature to spawn creativity in other facets of your life? Because a lot of those creeks and a lot of the ice chests, the way people used to live like that, it's gone now. And so you guys sort of that's a totally that's a that lifestyle doesn't really exist anymore.
No, I mean, I think we just try to stay honest with each other and like what we like and what we don't like, and like just because something's new or popular, like we don't like feel like we have to like that or like necessarily like respect it, and we kind of like live in our own zones and heads and just kind of make what we want to make, and mess with the people that we want to mess with and don't mess with the people that we don't want to mess with, and it tends to work out.
Dude, listen to you, man. Wait, give me an example of something that just because it's cool doesn't mean it's hip.
Well, I'm not gonna like name names, but
No,
just
no, no. I mean, this is no, I'm talking about this is about like values.
oh yeah, I mean, just like current celebrity culture and like just stuff that's to me. I mean, especially if you want to go back to psychedelics. I mean, I feel like after you do psychedelics, that stuff just looks like completely plastic and just terrible to you. And I mean, I don't even do psychedelics that much, but I feel like if you do it once, you kind of like learn that.
Many people would
Kind
agree with you.
of strips away
All
like
you need is one. What is this? What do you mean it strips away? Explain why. Explain why you only needed one time.
uh because when I mean, the first time I did that, I was like 16 or something, and it just made me realize like instantly that everything was like connected, and real stuff was real. And in the past when I've done that stuff and I try to go on social media, I can't even like look at it. I can't even like my brain won't even like take it.
Wow, that is. No, I totally am with you. But I think the point is the town you guys came from, the mentality and the space, and it fostered independent thinking. Think for yourself. Don't go.
Yeah, yeah, and
Don't
also
be a
it
sheep.
also
Yeah.
also yeah, it was just also just as back then it was like a very like redneck rural town that kind of like bummed us out. So like we made our own world, and listened to like Nirvana and like nerded out on Phish. So that kind of stuff that kind of saved us, you know?
Dude, that Jason bringing that tape to school, man, was a game changer.
Yeah, hell yeah, totally.
Brian Harding, man, I hope we can connect in person real soon, man. What's the timetable on the release of the? I mean, I've heard some snippets, but like, or do you not want to lay out how it's going to kind
Oh
of
no,
lay out?
I think the cool thing with house band is that like it's totally evolving in real time. Like we don't have a
Oh,
plan. So we put out the EP the day after Christmas, and then we do have a full album recorded. We'll probably put that out, I don't know, spring or something. And probably hope
just
to have like a debut show in spring.
and so I just where can people find the EP?
Oh yeah, it's on every streaming platform. It's like kind of hard to find because it's so new, but I think if you just type in like house band, we have a song called like Charlie. So if you just type in like house band Charlie, you'll find it. It's also all the links are on my Instagram too.
That's beautiful, man. Yo,
Yeah.
it's so good to hear you, man. This is my last interview of the year. I've done about
Oh, I'm
200.
honored.
So, and dude, honestly, I learned a lot of cool stuff from you, man. So we'll cross paths soon and do it up.
Thanks, Jake. I'll talk to you soon. Happy New Year.
You too, brother. Peace.